Hey everybody, tonight we're just going to have some fun and we're going to create a scene from scratch and go all the way to the end. So we're going to do some work in Vue and create a nice canyon terrain with a river running through it, and then maybe add some sort of animal splashing around in that river. So let's go.
Okay, so here we are in Vue. And the first thing I'm going to do is create my canyon. And in order to do that, I'm going to start with just a terrain here. Now, the terrain that I start with isn't shaped very much like a canyon wall. So what I'm going to do is give it a lot more height and then double click on this here. This should take me into the terrain editor. So right now the resolution is a little bit low. I'm going to increase it by clicking this ×2 button, and that gives me a higher resolution landscape to work with. And then I'm going to click this button here, and voila, I have something that looks a lot more canyon-like. So we'll just click OK here, and I'm going to drag that over there, make it a bit taller, and that'll be our first canyon wall. Now what I'm going to do now is give it a bit of a texture that looks more like a canyon, and you can see here I have it already selected, canyon, and that looks a bit on the light side. So I'm going to go to the layers, and I'm going to darken this some. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I like that much better. And for the brown sand here, which is these flat areas, I'm going to add some foliage, some bushes, because I'm going to want bushes that run alongside the lake that's going to run through this or the river that runs through this canyon. So in order to do that, I click Ecosystem here, and I'm going to pick a type of plant. In this case, I'm just going to pick the crawling bush. Actually, maybe summer bush. I'll do this one here. Bush 1. The Bush 1 group. I believe that comes with Vue. And I only want it to be on this bottom level, so I'm going to take the presence and move this slider down. So this makes the altitudes range just at the lower altitudes that this ecosystem will work. And click populate, and it crawled up the side of the canyon there a bit. So I'm going to make it go even lower. I'm still getting a little bit of credit. There we go. Make it a bit more dense. I'm actually going to go smaller on the scale as well. As I can see, I'm kind of seeing the size of those. So let's go to about half of what it was. There we go. Now let's see how that looks in a quick test render. You know what, that still looks way too big. And I don't think I like that bush either. So let's change that out. So click here on the, you see this little picture, I think it's supposed to look like a tree growing out of a white square. If you click on that, that's the ecosystem. And we'll get rid of that bush. And we'll add a crawling bush instead. Now let's see how that looks. Now that looks much better. It's still a bit too big. So we'll make them even smaller. Scaling. That's what I have. I was changing the size variation. We actually want the size variation to be 2-ish. That'll create some bushes that's twice as large. Let's actually do 1.5. Give it some variance in size. And then the overall scaling, we'll move this down to about 0.5. And I think I want the color to be a bit darker. So I'm just going to click here, go for a darker green, and maybe a bit on the grayer side. And now let's have a look at that. Now that's looking a bit more like what I want. Okay, so now I'm going to create the rest of the canyon walls. And in order to do that, I'll look at it from the top-down view. And actually, I'm going to show you one trick real quick to save you some processing time and speed things up. When I go to the ecosystem here, under General tab, you see this display options. If you change this to none, all those bushes just drop to little green dots. And it's just easier on your graphics card, and it's going to make things move around a bit faster. All right, now to make the canyon walls, I'm just going to duplicate this particular terrain a few times. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key and drag, and that creates a whole new instance. It's got all the materials applied and everything. I'm going to drag this one over to here. And as long as you duplicate with, so that the camera doesn't see that it's an obvious duplicate, this saves you a lot of time rather than having to create multiple terrains again and again. Alright, now I'll Alt and drag again. Now this time it might be too obvious a clone of that one, so I'm going to, just to change that, all you do is just give it a turn. And then I'll do one more. This will be a bit further back. So it looks like we have some depth in this canyon. Okay, I'm going to tiny bit closer than that though, because I don't want it to line up too much with this one. There we go. You know what? I think I want one more. So Alt, drag again, and we'll give this one another turn. And that'll close that canyon in back there. Okay. And now we just want to add some water. Well, first actually we want to add some ground under the water. So, oops, I added the water anyway. Let's delete that first. Because, well, actually let me add the water first. Now you'll see a problem here when I render the water. Well, first off, it's a little too high up. So let's go down to about here. The water might actually look a little bit on the funny side because there's nothing under it to give it color. So let's fix this terrain here. It's a little too high up. Actually, let's just fix the water. Got to find that perfect level for the water. It can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. Right about there looks good. And now I'm going to add an infinite plane. So I'm going to click and hold right here and pick this dirt patch. And that actually creates an infinite ground underneath. Now right now its color is all white. So let's give it a more of a dirt color. Let's use this dry clay. And make sure that's down below the water, the level of the water. So now you can see here in the preview window the water's looking pretty good. So let's do a quick test render. And I'm liking that. So the next thing is I don't particularly care for this sky. It's a little bit too grayish for me. So in fact, I think I'm going to pick a whole different environment. So I'm just going to click and hold here. And this allows me to pick various atmospheres. And one of my favorites is this one. It's called Danger in the Air. So I'm going to double click on that. Click over here. Now you see I got a much bluer sky and a lot more depth too. Now one thing you can do with the Danger in the Air to speed it up, do a quick click here. Go to clouds. For some reason it has clouds defined, but you can't see them. So you might as well just get rid of them. And that actually speeds up your render times tremendously. Now a couple other things I do whenever I create an atmosphere. I make sure it's on global radiosity. This gives you the best lighting of any of the lighting settings. But you can lower the quality down to -1. It looks exactly the same, but renders a lot faster. What else do I need to do here? Oh, and also double click on the sun here. Soften it up just a little bit. We'll put it up to about a 3% softness. And lower the shadows to about 85%. This will make the shadows not quite so harsh. There we go. That's looking pretty good. I think I want to play around with the sun's position though. Let's see what happens if I move it to the other side. Maybe a little higher in the sky. Let's see what our preview looks like then. I don't think I like that actually. Let's see about here. Maybe make it lower in the sky. As you move it away from the center, it'll get lower in the sky. Well, that looks pretty interesting. What I see here, though, is too much light shining through into the canyon. That's because we don't really actually have any real canyon wall behind this first one. So I'm going to cheat and put in something that will render quick. I'm just going to drop in a cube. And you're not going to see this in the render. It's just going to create shadows so that our canyon looks like a canyon. Get some height there. So now the canyon should look a little bit more shadowed. It's still not yet. Let's move that up a bit there. Now let's see how that worked. There we go. Now it looks like there's a canyon wall. We can maybe lower just a little bit to give it some more light up here along the edge. Alright, so let's do a quick test render of that. Let's do it full screen here. And that's looking pretty good. I think what I want to do is put one more bit of canyon wall back there. Way off in the distance, just so it doesn't look like the canyon ends with nothing. Okay, so I'm going to pick that terrain here in the back. Hold down the Alt key and duplicate it. Just drag back here. Make it appear there. Give it another spin just so it doesn't look too much like I'm repeating. Make it a bit lower. Okay, and that'll make our canyon closed off. And now I think I want to put some clouds in the sky. So to do that, there's two ways you can do clouds. You can click this thing over here, and this will create your meta clouds. And another way is to actually just edit it in the atmosphere. The ones in the atmosphere tend to look a bit better. So I'm going to add some clouds here, and we'll do dark cumulus. Do a quick look in there at the test render. Now that's way too dark. But instead of worrying too much about it, first I'm going to change the density down to about 60%. I'll do 65-ish. And that's looking a bit better. But also I'm going to reduce the coverage by quite a bit. Now put it down to about 40%. Let's see how that looks. That looks a bit better. A bit more like some clouds peeking over the edge of the canyon wall. So one more time I'll do a test render, and I think I'll stop on this and then move to finding some sort of character to add to this. Okay, so our render finished here, and now this was still just in preview mode, and it took a pretty good amount of time. It actually took 25 minutes, and that's because of these clouds here, really. Clouds make render times very, very high. So if you're doing this yourself and you want to speed things up, just get rid of the clouds. So now what I'm going to do is save this off. I can do that by clicking the save button here. And then we'll go to, I have a projects folder where I keep everything. I'll just create a new folder here. We'll just call it Canyon. And then call the file Canyon as well. And with that, I'm going to close down Vue and move to, we'll go to Poser, and we'll come up with a character there. Maybe we'll put a horse running through the river here, splashing along. So let's do that. Alright, so here we are in Poser 10. Now I've owned various versions of Poser for years and years, and I have a pretty good library built up. So I'm going to be using a horse that doesn't come with Poser. It's a third-party product that I got from daz3d.com. And it's a pretty good horse. It's their original Daz Horse 1. And I have it under my old Poser 6 library. As I said, I've added quite a number of characters to this. And I want the Millennium Horse. Now, in the description of this video, I'm going to have links for you to all of the resources that I use. So you'll be able to figure out where to get this Millennium Horse from, and where to get Poser, Vue, all that kind of stuff. Alright, so this is our basic horse here. I'm going to add a texture to him, and this is another product that I happen to have. for the horse. It's special textures that you can get off renderosity.com that make it look like a pinto colored Mustang. And that's going to be under animals. I do a lot of horses, so I actually saved everything off to my own horse folder. And here it is, CWRW painted ponies. And we'll pick a nice pinto looking horse. Yeah, there it is. Looks pretty good. Now, one of the things, the mane and tail that come with this are really no good. They never work for me. Instead, I just paint them in post-production, so I'm going to get rid of those. And to do that, I'm just going to have to click on each of these, for the tail, I'm going to have to click on each joint of the tail and just make it invisible. And just uncheck the visibility and the properties tab. This takes a few seconds, but it'll make it so I don't have to get rid of the old tail in order to paint a new one in. Just go down to each one, making invisible. Be real careful towards the end here because it gets kind of hard to see. And I think that's all of them. Now for the mane, I can usually find somewhere a special material setting that'll get rid of the mane. There we go. 4 locks off. That's the 4 lock is right there. And then there should be a mane off. Actually, if there's not that, I can always go to select the whole horse body, parameters. I believe here there's somewhere I can actually hide the manes. Here it is. Because we have mane right gone, mane left gone, and mane up gone. And we're just going to get rid of the one on the left. And there, we've gotten rid of the mane and tail. Now I'll keep the fetlock, so those look pretty good. And now we're just going to give the horse a pose. I'm probably, for the sake of time, I'm going to try to select a preset pose. Normally, though, I would go in and carefully set up the horse's pose. Let's see, Daz Mill horse, gallop. That'll do right there, actually. A couple other things I want to do. I still have the body selected. I'm going to make him a Mustang, so I'll just set that parameter to 1. That's really all I need to do for this. Let's, well, before I do that, let's give his head a bit of a toss, because he's going to be playing in the water, so I can, sort of make the, make him a little bit more active looking. That body there. Yeah, one of the things I like about Poser is how fast you can just turn things. I just put on this rotate tool, click on a body part, and move it. It highlights the body part I want to move. It's one of the things I really like about Poser. I'm gonna move that one out a little bit too far there. All right, so that's good enough for now. We'll save this off. Save as. And I'm going to find that Canyon project folder that I had it saved in, the Vue file saved in, and then I'll just save it as Mustang. And then I'm not going to close this just yet. I'm just going to minimize it and fire up. Actually, I never turned off Vue, so I still have Vue here. I'll switch over to Vue. I'm going to File, Open. Actually, I think what I want is, this is the Add Object button. And if I click this little arrow down here, it's going to let me go to the file system on the computer. And here's my Canyon folder. And one of the things I really like about Vue is that it will import Poser files. And when it asks you about this light object, you just say no. I'm not sure what that is really. I also have no idea what this is. It's something that Poser 10 started putting in, whatever Office Foyer light probe is. Again, I just say no. Okay, now here, we don't want to import it. The Poser has 30 frames of animation by default. We don't want any of that. We just want the one frame that we were posing in, and that happened to be the first frame, which is frame 0. Now in Poser, that's frame 1. Poser bases its series of frames from 1 to 30. Vue sees them from 0 to 29. So you want to select 0, and then just leave what all these check marks are here. The only one you really want is the group figures that say a single mesh. And our horse is somewhere. We can't really see it. Let's go back to the 4-frame mode. And he's right there, hiding above the camera. We'll put him about here. We're going to make him bigger so we can see him. And we're going to drop him into the water. We actually want him to be in the water, so we'll actually cut that water plane right there. We'll make him much bigger because he's the main character in this scene. Get him a tilt to the side. And put him about over here. So this is, I'm doing some composition work here. His head's, the horse's head is the most important part of the scene. It's where everybody's eyes are going to be drawn to. And one of the things I'm helping to do that with is a technique called framing. What I'm using is the top rim of the canyon here is sort of creating a circle around the horse's head. This will give the viewer some focus on that head of the horse. It's good for composition. It's going to make a clear image for the viewer to see. So do a quick preview there. And it's a little hard to see in the preview window. For the sake of speeding things up, I'm going to turn the clouds off. And to do that, I just click right there, and it's going to ask me if I want to toggle it off, and I'm going to say yes. Now things should preview a whole lot faster. So we'll do a quick preview render. It looks like the water's a bit too shallow for where that horse is. So we'll push him down in the water a bit more. Yeah, I'm liking it so far. I think I want to try turning him some more, maybe. No, I don't like that. Turn him less. Yeah, I like that angle. It's coming right out at the viewer with that front hoof. Now the shadows are a bit dark on his right side. So I'm going to create sort of a fill light. And to do that, I just click on this here. Now, if that's not showing, you can click and hold, and you'll get a variety of lights. This is the one you want, though. That's the directional light, which creates an even directional light throughout the whole image. I'm going to move it down to the side here and angle it so that it's pointing into the scene. And I'm just going to give it sort of a bluish-greenish color. Just gray it down a whole lot. Lighten it up a little bit. And soften it. And because it's a fill light, I don't want it to have any shadows, so I'm going to disable the shadows. And now this side's not so lost in the dark. I think I want to work on that horse just a little bit more. Give him a tiny bit more of a turn. Right about there. Because all his feet are getting a little bit jumbled up here. Okay, and then I'm going to move him a little bit more towards the center. Now what I want him to be is about a third of the way into the frame. That tends to be one of the sweet spots for the composition, is to have your characters about not right in the middle, but off to the sides or up and down just a little bit, so they're only about a third of the way into the composition. And I think I like this right here. So now in order to make this production quality so that you can actually cut prints from it, I'm going to render a very large version. First, let me remember to turn the clouds back on. Okay. So when I click and hold on this camera here to get the render options, I'm just going to go to final preset. You can go to the higher ones, but because we're rendering so large, final is really all you need. And I'm going to render to the screen. And I like to do this because in case there's a power outage or something, every 6 hours during the render, if the render goes that long, that is, and we want 300 minutes, it'll save a file. Okay. Oops. And I got to specify a resolution. I want the resolution to be pretty large. We're going to do 5200 by 3250. So we're looking at, actually let's go even higher than that. Let's go 6200. So we're looking at about 24 megapixels. And that should be large enough to print a pretty large print off of it. And so before I start the render though, I am going to save it. Just click on the disk button up there. Okay, and now I'm just going to click on the camera and it's going to start rendering. And once the rendering's done, we'll come back and we'll talk about how we do some post-production.
Okay, so this took way longer to render than I had hoped. I guess it's probably a combination of the clouds we had in the sky and the size. Yeah, it took 222 hours. So anyway, we're going to save this off and just click OK to get past this here. And to save it, we just click this little disc-shaped icon here. And I'll save it to my desktop. Give that a moment to save. And I'm also going to save the depth map, which is this represented by this little Z here. So if you hit that, you see it goes to all gray. And there's actually it's a grayscale version of the image where, let's see if we can zoom out a bit here, where things up close appear darker than things further away, which are lighter. And we can use this to do some stuff in post-production, so we're going to save that too. So we click on that, go up to our desktop, and you see it sticks a little underscore Z here to indicate the file. And we'll save that. Alright, and then we'll shut this down and we'll go to GIMP to do some post-production.
Okay, so I've loaded our picture here into GIMP so I can do some post-production work. Now I've also loaded a few other things. And the first thing we're going to actually go to is the depth map that we saved. That was what we saved when we hit that little Z button in Vue and then saved it off. And I'm going to use this to kind of isolate the horse. So to do that, I'm going to go to Colors and Threshold. And what this does is it kind of just throws everything to either black or white, depending on where its level of grayness is. So we want to isolate that horse as much as possible. And you don't want to go down too much, because you eliminate the horse too. And actually, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to do just the horse. I'm going to select all, copy. I'm going to go back over here to our main image and paste. And then solidify that layer there. And select by colors and select by black. And then delete that layer. Now I have just the horse selected and a little bit of the water around him. So I can copy and paste, and that's going to create a new floating selection. And then I'm just going to create an extra layer here and merge down. And that gets because you can see here the kind of layer stops at this last inch. So if I merge a full layer down, now the whole layer is there. So now I've kind of got the horse isolated into his own layer. I'm going to do one more real quick because I also want to isolate just the front half of the horse. So I can just hit Control-Z a couple of times to undo that last threshold. And we'll go back up here again to Colors and Threshold. And now I just want to get the horse right about there. Yeah, right there. Select all, copy, paste, solidify the layer, select by color, select black, delete that layer, copy and paste, and then we'll just paste it, create another layer and merge down. So now I've got the horse, the front half of the horse isolated as well. And what I'm going to use that for is to add the mane and tail. Now to do that, I have some off-the-shelf stuff, and now I'll have links to this in the notes. Mane and tail packs that I got from Renderosity. So I picked a main out here. You can see here it's a whole bunch of it's a Photoshop file full of layers, and I've hidden most of the layers here except the one that I want to use for this particular project. Okay, so I'm going to select the main and copy. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to create, well, I'm just going to paste it. But I'm going to paste it into its own layer, and I can do that by just clicking on this create layer button here after I pasted it. And it's a bit too small, so I'm going to increase the size using the what is the name of this official name of this? The scale tool. And I'm gonna, by doing this, it increases in proportion length and width. Excuse me. So I'll make it about that big. Scale it up. Just tap the M button, but also that just is a shortcut to get to the move tool here. And I'm going to move it up to about here, and I'm also going to rotate it. Rotate. Move it a little bit more into place. Now you'll see it's obscuring the horse's head. It's in front of his head. That's because the layer is the topmost layer. Alright, so if I move the layer down one by clicking this little down arrow here, now it's behind the horse's head, but because we have this this one layer here, it's not behind his back, so it's coming over his backside here. Let's move that just a little bit more. Alright, about there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the mane and tail pack, and I'm going to select one of the forelocks. Here, let's have a look at those. I think I want it the one that's going down. Yeah, we'll do this one here. So just copy that and go back over here and paste again and move. Oh, I forgot to put it in its own layer. And that covers his eye. I don't like that. Let's see if we can put it up above his... Well, if I maybe rotate it just a little bit. Just so it breaks up his ear some. And move that into place. Alright, that'll look good for now. And also I have another file. This was a tail pack. Same made by the same person. Got it from the same place. And I'm just going to copy this tail here. Go back to here, paste that in, and put that in its own layer, and move that down to about where the tail should be. And then we're going to put that behind that layer. Let's move that down just a bit more. Now I don't necessarily care for the color here of the tail, so I can fix that just by going to hue and saturation. Let's just desaturate that, make it all gray. And we'll make it a bit darker. You can't really see it. Let's move that over here. Okay, that's better. And we can do that with the main, with the forelock and main as well. So colors, hue and saturation down and the lightness down. And with forelock, colors, hue and saturation, and drag those down. I think I like that better color for the mane and tail. Alright, now we also need to add some splashes down here, and for this we'll create another layer. And we'll just get that quick. Now for this I have a special set of splash brushes, and I'll have links to those for you. And I'm just going to pick the paintbrush, make sure my color is set to white, and let's find those splash brushes. Ah, here they are. And I got to make these pretty big. So you can just drop a splash in there. And one in back there maybe. Actually, let's create another layer for that one. Call this one back splashes, because they're going to be behind the this layer here. And now when I put it there, it doesn't cover that front hoof. we'll use a different splash though. How about this one here? No. Actually, that one would be good for the foreground. So let's make that one really big. And pop it up here. And you can undo that and kind of move it around until you find a place where you like it. Alright, so let's do that back hoof again. I'll pick maybe this one here. Oh, that looks good right there. Let's make this splash bigger. So we'll find another one. Let's see. How about that right there? Alright, that looks pretty good. Perhaps it's, if we want to remove some of the bottom here, you can just go to the eraser tool and use the same brush. Just move it down, and it'll kind of soften up that bottom of those splashes some. Alright, so anything else we want to do? One more thing. For this, you could add a layer. I do, but you don't have to. Just go to regular brush. Oops. And we want normal. And just pick some sort of fuzzy-ish shape. We'll do this one right here. That's way too big. Go down to about 20. And we'll zoom in on the eye. This is just an effect I find that a lot of people... It's a tiny thing, but it seems to make a big difference. A lot of people just seem to see it. Just put a reflection in any animal's eye. In this case, it's a horse, but any eye, and you add this reflection, and it sort of adds a lot of realism for, you know, a real cheap maneuver. I mean, just one little spot here, and if you see, we zoom out to about a regular level. You know, it just sort of I don't know, it makes the eye look more real. Let's see, what else do I need to do? Oh, and let's, while we're here, we'll adjust the colors. Let's zoom out so we see everything. First, we'll flatten this image. That'll get rid of all those layers and put them all into one layer, so any adjustments we make will affect everything. And we'll go to colors and levels. And you can see here, we're not using the brightest whites or the darkest darks. And to do that, we just move this up here, so now our darkest darks have gone to black, and move this down. So what this has done is it's balanced out our values to a full range, or it's given our picture a full range of values. And we'll click OK. And I think, oh well, one more thing I wanted to do real quick. I want to add a water line right here. And this is really easy to do. You just click on the brush. We can use whatever hardness, I guess. And we want it to be very small, just like 2. Click on one end of the shore, hold down the Shift key, and there. And it's not a huge thing, but it does make a pretty big difference. I mean, people, it sort of just creates a nice little cut there between the shore here and the water. We'll call this one pretty much done. Let me add my signature real quick. I just have a stamp that I use again and again. Let's see, open. Signature. And just copy that and paste it in. Oop, didn't copy it right. Select all, copy. Let's try that again. Ah, there we go. And I'm going to make it a bit smaller. And we'll just put it where it doesn't where it's sort of out of the way. All right, about here. And pin that down. And now we'll save this off to a file that we can upload to our print-on-demand site. Because I'm not just going to show you how to make this art, I'm going to show you how you can sell it too. So let's export as canyon.jpg. Export. Now it's a pretty big size. Let's actually, before I... Oh, here we go. We want to make sure the file size, since I upload to Fine Art America, has a limit of 25 megabytes. I want to make sure that I compress it just enough that I'm under that limit. And for a this is roughly about a 24 megapixel picture. We got to see right here I'm a little bit over. I bet you if I just go down to 99, which will not damage the file in any noticeable way, but that puts us well under the 25 megabyte limit, so we'll save it that way. And now we'll get online and we'll upload it to Fine Art America. Log in. And I'll go to my profile page, images, upload image, choose a file, and that's on my desktop. And we'll upload that. So Fine Art America is a print-on-demand site. What it will allow me to do is that take that art that I've made and it will put it in my public gallery for Fine Art America, and people will be able to order prints straight from that, and I will profit automatically. And what I like about Fine Art America, and I'll show you in just a minute, is that instead of specifying a percentage of the profit from the sale, I actually have can specify markups by size. We'll call this Mustang Canyon, because those are the two most prominent features of this. It's in a canyon and it's a Mustang on the front. So, and we can throw in some keywords. Mustang, horse, canyon. I know, later I'll probably go back and add a whole bunch, because you want to be pretty thorough with your keywords, because these are what will bring people here from search engines, particularly if they come to the Fine Art America and use this search engine. You don't need to do plurals. Those are covered automatically, so I don't need to say horses like this. That would be just a waste of time. I do have a limit of 500 characters for keywords. Let's see, we have paint horse, pinto, stallion, lots of horse-related terms. Western, maybe. That looks like something out of the American West, so maybe you can say American West. And of course, my name as the author, so that if anybody does a search on my name, this image will come up. And then in description, a pinto coated Mustang, splashes through a canyon river. Now I'm probably going to go back later also here and add a much more detailed description about how I made this, and links to the video that you're watching now and all that kind of stuff. But for now, I'm just going to do, for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to go do that. In case you do something that's not safe for work, you can always check no here. I have a bunch of my own galleries specifically for horse. This is what divides your images up. You know, if you have little sub galleries, I have one for Mustangs. If you've joined groups on the site, you can submit it to groups. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll go back and do that later. You can select the category. In this case, it's digital art because I made this digitally. I have no original to sell. That's one of the pitfalls of this form of art. Now here's the part I was talking about where you can specify the markup based on the size. These are the sizes that will be available for people to buy. And they can buy in various mediums, canvas, paper, I believe there's acrylic and metallic prints as well. And this is a default set of markups I have in here. And I'm going to leave it just the defaults in here, but it'd be really nice if somebody bought a 72 inch by 45 inch and I get a $300 profit. Now the reason I can sell it this large is because that was a 24 megapixel picture that we uploaded. So that's kind of the importance of rendering large. You know, if I had rendered like a small 1 megapixel image, the largest size I could sell might just be 10 by 16. There's a few other options of things, of various ways you can sell it. We'll just skip over those for now. Now I also have licensing available, which is another nice feature of Fine Art America. And if I want to put it up to my Facebook or Twitter, I can do it that way. But I'm going to do it a different way because I don't necessarily like the format these put in. And we'll submit it. So now this is already available for sale. Somebody can log in, you know, somebody can come to Fine Art America, choose to buy a canvas print, and you know, go through the process, and I profit just that quickly. However, people aren't just going to come here by happenstance. You have to bring them to your site. So for that, I'm going to go to Hootsuite, which is a tool I use to manage my social marketing, or my social network marketing. In this case, I have Twitter and Facebook hooked up to this. And I use my Twitter credentials to log into it. And I have a special tab here for scheduling tweets and Facebook posts. So I can say, hey, check out my new art. I can attach an image to that, and it's got to be a smaller image. So here it is on my desktop. I have this little plugin that I've added to Windows that allows me to resize pictures, but we could have manually resized it in GIMP as well, because I only want to upload small pictures to my social networks. So small, resize. I can pick on Canyon here. And now I also don't want to forget to have a link to where they can buy it. And I'm going to shorten that using goo.gl. This is mostly for Twitter's sake. Alright, and copy that. And you say something like Prince. And thanks. Alright, and then I can actually schedule that to appear at a time that's more convenient for sales. Let's say my audience tends to be more of an evening crowd. I'll schedule it to go out at 8 o'clock tonight. Or 8, yeah, let's do 8 o'clock p.m. and schedule. Oops, I forgot something. Got to pick those social networks to go to. So my Twitter account and my Facebook fan page. And schedule it now. And now I have a whole bunch of stuff scheduled because I've already scheduled all my posts for the weekend. But you can see here, it's ready to go out at 8 o'clock tonight here on Twitter, and 8 o'clock tonight here on Facebook, my Facebook fan page. So if you like this video and you'd like to see more, or read some of my articles, or even check out some of my art, you can find me on my blog at www.introvertartist.com. And here I post articles on how to make art, how to sell it online, tools that you can use. I have links to my gallery, as well as you can subscribe to my newsletter here. And my newsletter is something I send out every Wednesday with news on my latest artworks, articles, videos, promotions, discounts, and I even throw in a free computer wallpaper every week. So thanks everybody, and good night.